Nirmala Sitharaman touched on a number of key points. Remember, yesterday she presented the interim budget, the last before the general elections. In this interview, she's gone into depth on certain aspects of it. She's also talked about certain criticism that was made by the opposition yesterday. And lastly, she's also made some particularly interesting points regarding politics, the political sphere, the performance of the BJP in the south in the upcoming elections. We're going to be bringing you all of this in the next hour. We're going to be taking a deeper dive into each of these comments with our panel of reporters and experts. Let's start first with Sitharaman's comments on the economy, the budget, and how, according to her, this is secularism in action. Take a look.
My first question, a somewhat obvious question, no Sops, no populist measures. Even in 2019 interim budget, the government had announced some Sops, like tax rebates. There were some announcements for the farmers, but none this time. Seems like a very confident Prime Minister going into 2024 elections. You've never looked more relaxed to me before. What was going on in your mind while drafting this?
Well, thank you for having me after the budget, like every year. It's a great opportunity to talk to your viewers and also for others who are watching this program more with keenness to know about the Indian economy. Yes, the budget yesterday did not have any Sops announced. We treated it like a true vote on account, an interim budget before an election, and also an interim budget which is being presented with the clear understanding that the several programs which were launched with empowerment of citizens in mind over the last 10 years are reaching the ground, and the beneficiaries are already on their own speaking about it. The power of word of mouth is very strong. So when a beneficiary gets truly the benefit, and without any middlemen playing a role in it, they really understand that the intent of the government is what they've said is what is getting executed. So I place a lot of trust in the word of mouth, which has helped in schemes like Ujjwala, PM Awas Yojana, PM Mudra Yojana, Swanidhi Yojana, all of which have benefited the small households, small people who want to do their business and who don't have money to give for collateral, no properties to give. So this government has actually, because of the vision with which Prime Minister is committed to serve this country, is actually serving the common people in letter and spirit.
I had interviewed the Prime Minister in 2016, as early as that, and he spoke about the white paper. He said that we should come out with the white paper because we inherited an economy which was in the fragile five. And and that was early, just 2 years into the government. And what we had to really do to drag it out of, the levels it had reached. You spoke similarly yesterday about a white paper, and you said it was a Herculean task to bring the economy back from the brink. What is the idea behind the white paper? Why now? And will it be another stick to beat the opposition with?
See, you're right in pointing out that the Honorable Prime Minister has spoken about it even in 2016 in your interview. Then it was so many different sections of our society themselves suggested to us that you better bring a paper out, white paper out, to say why Indian economy has reached the fragile five, to say why our banks had become such a black hole. Nothing could be restored of the banks. Banks were all in deep trouble. Look at the number of NPAs and the value of the NPAs, meaning what was the original value and to what extent they had reached almost close to valueless positions. So whether it was your banks, whether it was the overall economy, whether it was defense procurement, whether it was a vital sector of telecom, why? Even minerals. Yes. Every area was ridden with problems. Now if you're talking of corruption, Well, it's one thing, it goes to the court, people get punished, and then the monies are given back or not given back, values are retrieved or not retrieved. That's one side of the story. But what impact it left on the economy? To restore your banks back to health, to make sure your country is safe with adequate strategic equipments given to defense personnel, to make sure that your mines, which are wealth under the earth, meaning inside the earth, under the soil, to use them for the benefit of the country rather than to use them as one instrument through which you line your own pocket. What implications it had on the economy? Banks not being healthy, mines being given to brothers and sisters who did not want to extract the mineral for the benefit of the country. Spectrum allocations, if it had happened in time, I didn't have to spend so much to restore BSNL, to have 2G or 4G in time. And what implication does it have on the country when 4G is not available in time, whereas the whole world is talking about 5G?
Yes.
So the kind of impact that it had, the mismanagement, it is not just talking about, policy paralysis for a fragile 5. It's talking about every one of these steps, which one morally was immoral, in the sense was not right, and equally the kind of positive effect, if it had happened very well in a transparent fashion, it would have had on the economy. We lost 10 glorious years, and to restore it to that position back and then to pull it up to now get closer to the world's third largest economy is a Herculean task, which I'm grateful this country had a Prime Minister like Modi ji, who single-mindedly said, I will restore this economy back, it's my service to the nation.
Yes.
Otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So why the white paper now?
Yes.
We've had 10 years, and prior to that there was a 10 years where you saw all this happening. Policy paralysis, corruption, nation losing its endowments, and so on. 10 years under Prime Minister Modi. What kind of course corrections had to happen? Yes. What kind of restoring confidence had to happen? What kind of pulling back from rut that had to happen? And equally making sure you're purchasing the equipments, you're removing BSNL from distress, you're making sure BSNL employees are given their due, you're making sure the country gets 5G, not just 4G. Look at the coverage India has in 5G today.
I agree.
All this, and to make sure that the investor confidence is not just intact, but is growing, that within a matter of 8 years, I would say, we've reached $596 billion as our foreign exchange reserve. Just compare that with the last 10 years. At least for the sake of the elected honorable representatives who are sitting in the parliament, they should know what was it then, what effort it took to restore it here, and what we should not therefore ever imagine or dream of doing in personal interest, forgetting the nation. Why now? Parliament should know. 2, at that time, had Prime Minister Modi not taken the call that in the interest of our nation, I would not bring it out. He didn't bring the paper then, white paper then, because you put the nation first. You say, if I do it now, I can be happy, but the confidence in our country would have been lost. Investors wouldn't have come. Our own people would have lost faith in the systems. They would say, oh my God, this government will come, eat away and go. That next government can come. It'll do its own, but we're all languishing. The faith in institutions, in government, in leaders, in politics would have been lost in the minds of people. And I'm so grateful that the Prime Minister didn't do it then. He restored it all, put India on such a wonderful track towards becoming third largest economy, and then so that all of us know what it took.
Okay, so we just played out an excerpt of that interview, and through the show, we're going to continue doing that. We'll bring you excerpts from the interview, and then we'll speak to experts, reporters that are joining us from across the country to bring you context on each slice. Let's go over first to our colleague Pallavi to get more context on the comments we just heard Sitaraman make on the white paper. Pallavi, let me just explain to our audiences. Yesterday in the budget, the white paper was discussed as a paper that will be tabled by the government that will discuss what the economy used to look like before the Modi government came into power. So we're talking about 2013, and it'll compare it to indices in the present day. The idea being that with this paper, the government wants to show the kind of development that's taken place. Right now, Pallavi, we saw some pretty pointed comments coming from Sitaraman about the fact that, according to her, the paper was never released earlier because the Modi government didn't want to shame the previous UPA government. The goal was instead to repair the country, to repair the government, and then release the paper. Pallavi, could you speak to that point, please?
See, Toya, 10 years is a very good benchmark which the government is going to be using because 10 years of UPA rule with 10 years of the N.D.I.A rule, so you have the same number of years which have been, which explains the government which has been in power. So that becomes the ideal benchmark in which you make those comparisons. Anything less, anything more, it would be seen and accused of being unequal. So I think the government wants to make the point that let's talk about our 10 years versus their 10 years. And the points and the bullet points essentially of the paper, which I think is something which is likely to be tabled in this session itself, at least if you go by the indication coming in from the government. But there were specific pointers which were released by way of sources from within the government yesterday, Toya, where it talks that there has been a huge spurt and a lot of change given the same people and the same country that we are talking about. A surge as far as savings are concerned, a surge as far as expenditure is concerned, infrastructural development, UPI or digital transactions, more transparency taking place, increase in GST also which has taken place. In fact, a 10.4% growth in GST collection was registered day before alone, Toya, which just goes on to show that the initial hesitance over GST, that's been overcome. It also shows more transparency. It also shows, contrary to the grievances and the accusations coming in from the opposition ruled state governments, at least as far as the increase in GST figures goes, also goes on to show that there is more and more money which is now being available in terms of revenue generation as far as the opposition ruled or even other state governments are concerned. So this is a real 10-year benchmark which the government is going to apply to show how the life of people have completely changed. What government sources and the BJP sources yesterday were pointing out, Toya, is Sonia Gandhi's 10 years of UPA versus 10 years of the Prime Minister. That's going to be a very, very important plank, so to say, and the pitch for the Viksit Bharat, a Saksham Bharat, which is what this government is talking about.
Stay with us. Let's also go over to our colleague Aman Sharma, who's with us here in the newsroom. Aman, if we could just refer right now to the specific point, because this is a layer that Sitaraman added in the interview to us, that the Prime Minister wanted to repair the economy first before releasing any kind of white paper. So a pointed note, and she's gone into what she means when she says repair. She's talked about it. She's talking about coal mines in parts of our country. She's talked about deep lying, underlying what she calls corruption in different states. How do you see it?
Well, Toya, I think a very interesting point by Nirmala Sitharaman that, we could have exposed the UPA earlier, but we waited, we didn't want to embarrass them earlier. We wanted to work, repair the economy and then only come out with a white paper. I think this white paper, surely when it comes out, will also be a kind of an election paper. You are going to the electorate see what happened in the 10 years of the UP and what happened. It's a clear matrix, 10 years to 10 years comparison. Also, the issue I think that she's trying to make is that high inflation in the times of UPA, low growth with high inflation. Here it's high growth, low inflation. So that is the main matrix that they're talking about. Also, I think it shows the confidence of the government. If this seems like even the vote on account, if I would say the interim budget is a document which speaks of the confidence of the government to come back. There is less populism in this budget. In fact, I can hardly, see any big populist measure. That is what expected of governments when you go into an election year. There was a lot of talk about, PM Kisan Nidhi money going up, cut in maybe fuel prices. All these things were being spoken about and expected, but the government has chosen not to go down that path. Government has chosen to take a development oriented approach. I would say, especially in the wake of the higher allocation for capex. Right. Last year also we saw a big increase in the capex amount which was given. This year also it's 11 lakh crore, almost 11% up. So the government is clear that we will invest in infrastructure. We will go for more roads, highways, railways. airports, this is the path the country needs to take to a high growth trajectory. And when this white paper actually comes out, you will see the government comparing that what all we've done and what all the UPA did in the last 10 years. So I think it's a benchmark and it's a statement by a very, very confident looking government which is coming back to power. And as Nirmala Sitharaman said in her speech yesterday in Parliament, that this government will present the full budget in July. So that is showing, I think, exhibiting with the kind of confidence that the Modi government has. And the confidence, I think, is also based upon the strong projections, not just by India, but by Indian agencies, by global rating agencies saying that we will be growing by 7% plus. That is the confidence I think that the government has to have.
Okay. Thank you. So, Aman, highlighting that key takeaway, the lack of populist measures. This was perhaps the key takeaway yesterday from the interim budget. Okay, we told you earlier that in this interview, Nirmala Sitharaman has also talked about the political sphere. She's touched on the BJP performance in the upcoming elections in just a little more than a month from now. Take a look.
We are seeing a different side of Nirmala Sitharaman. In the last few weeks, you've also been seen as an aggressive politician. You've turned the heat on your rivals in Tamil Nadu. You said that Stalin's DMK is an anti-Hindu party and that they were forbidding the live telecast of the Ram Mandir Pran Pratishthan ceremony. What do you have to say to that?
100%. I have not said a loose word. I did mean what I say, and I do truly believe that repeatedly the attack on Hindus in Tamil Nadu in layers which are seen and in layers which are not seen have been felt for a long time. I speak very many times about Tamil Nadu with lived experience.
Yes.
And therefore I don't talk too soon, nor do I speak too indiscreetly. So when I say something, I mean it because I feel it also. I do corroborate with data, with actual ground activities, and then only comment. Unfortunately, if that is the politics of a state party, which has had a lot of ideological support extended to separatist politicians of years gone by.
Yes.
Whether they support it even today, I do not know, but there are periodic voices which come out which are very separatist in tone and tenor. My grief is a national party like the Congress party has been decimated in Tamil Nadu, and today, till today, they are not a position to win an election, even a couple of seats on their own, without being in alliance with one of these parties. BJP is, of course, a beginner there. It's been there since the Jansangh days, and it's gaining strength. We'll continue to work with the people. But the grief that I want to express is a national party like Congress party also joins that anti-Hindu voice. Does not condemn the anti-Hindu voice of the party DMK. And even worse, goes in support of such voices which come from DMK. And today, not just in Tamil Nadu, a Congress party member in the Lok Sabha today, meaning he is a sitting Lok Sabha member, and a brother of a deputy chief minister in Karnataka, also speaks in separatist voice. So anti-Hindu is one, anti-Hindu activity is another, which also is happening in Karnataka incidentally. Congress party in Tamil Nadu supports these kind of anti-Hindu or anti-separatist voices.
Okay, let's go over now to our colleague Harish Upadhyay. We'll have different reporters joining us from across the country to bring us context on this interview. Harish, let me just tell our audiences, Nirmala Sitharaman referring to two separate sets of comments. So she's referring to anti-Hindu comments, as she calls them. In fact, referring to I.N.D.I.A, Stalin, son of the DMK Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, the comments that he's made in the last few months. She seems to be referring to them. And she's also referring to what she calls anti the country. She's essentially saying separatist comments comments that have come in from Karnataka. She's, of course, referring to D.K. Suresh's comments that have come in just a few hours after she presented the budget yesterday. D.K. Suresh coming out and saying that southern states were paying, but the infrastructure development all taking place in the north. He also saying that this is the sentiment that everyone has, but no one else has the guts to say it out loud. And then we did see some support coming in from his brother too, the Deputy Chief Minister, to that comment. Harish, these particularly strict statements coming in from the Finance Minister regarding this entire controversy, how do you see it?
Well, it's very clear that the BJP understands that they have an opportunity here. They were always targeting both the DMK and the Congress here in Karnataka for being anti-Hindu. She mentioned that here once again, saying that there are activities that are happening that can be termed as anti-Hindu, being against Hindus, both in Tamil Nadu and in Karnataka ever since this Congress government has come back to power. At the same time, now with this comment of D.K. Suresh that came in yesterday, they do understand that not just being anti-Hindu, they can also convince the electorate that these leaders and this party is also taking a separatist line. She's once referring to how DMK had supported or taken support from smaller parties in Tamil Nadu that had taken separatist line. Now here D.K. Suresh making this comment. Congress has always had a long association with DMK, and D.K. Suresh also taking a similar separatist line is something that once again proves that Congress is not in favor. It's against national interest. It's not a nationalist party. Once again, the BJP sensing that this is one platform that they've got, especially in Karnataka, where they want to consolidate and perhaps repeat the 25 seats that they had got here in the last Lok Sabha election. And that's one of the main reason why you see a lot of leaders today, not just from BJP Karnataka, but their national leaders also coming out speaking against D.K. Suresh, and once again reiterating that it's not just the thought process of D.K. Suresh, but this is the thought process of the Congress party. And the fact that nobody has come out and condemned that incident wholeheartedly, and we haven't seen any sort of action from the Congress against D.K. Suresh is something that indicates that the Congress perhaps tacitly agrees with it. That's the argument that we have seen from the BJP side all along today, and the fact that we've had Congress leaders in the state coming out and not condemning the statement, but some of them trying to justify, saying that, well, look at where it comes from. It's coming from the fact that the union government is not giving enough money to southern states, and that's why we are feeling so. It's only the Chief Minister who yesterday came out categorically and said, well, we might feel anything, but in a federal structure, you cannot question the integrity or perhaps the fact that we are a union of states. Nobody should talk anything on the lines of a separate nation. We can only express our grouse that we haven't got our due share. That statement coming in only from the Chief Minister, but a whole list of Congress leaders that we have seen from Karnataka today, none of them coming out and clearly saying that this is a view that the party and we leaders don't subscribe to. All of them are trying to either play it down or just saying that perhaps look at the reason why such a statement has come out.
Harish, thank you for bringing us that context. Harish Upadhyay joining us live from Bengaluru. Right now, we are going to head into a quick break. On the other side, we continue to focus on this interview, on takeaways from it. We'll keep going over to our panel of experts and reporters. We'll see you in just a few minutes. This is The Nation at 5.
Dadu.
Nirmala ji, thank you very much once again for giving us this exclusive, very special interview like every year after the budget. Through our News 18 network, through CNBC, CNBC Awaaz, CNN News 18, you will be able to reach every nook and corner of the country, and investors are glued into moneycontrol.com, tracking every twist and turn of the budget. Thank you so much. My first question, a somewhat obvious question, no Sops, no populist measures. Even in 2019 interim budget, the government had announced some Sops, like tax rebates. There were some announcements for the farmers, but none this time. Seems like a very confident Prime Minister going into 2024 elections. You've never looked more relaxed to me before. What was going on in your mind while drafting this?
Well, thank you for having me after the budget, like every year. It's a great opportunity to talk to your viewers and also for others who are watching this program more with the keenness to know about the Indian economy. Yes, the budget yesterday did not have any Sops announced. We treated it like a true vote on account, an interim budget before an election, and also an interim budget which is being presented with the clear understanding that the several programs which were launched with empowerment of citizens in mind over the last 10 years are reaching the ground, and the beneficiaries are already on their own speaking about it. The power of word of mouth is very strong. So when a beneficiary gets truly the benefit and without any middleman playing a role in it, they really understand that the intent of the government is what they've said is what is getting executed. So I place a lot of trust in the word of mouth, which has helped in schemes like Ujjwala, PM Awas Yojana, PM Mudra Yojana, Swanidhi Yojana, all of which have benefited the small households, small people who want to do their business and who don't have money to give for collateral, no properties to give. So this government has actually, because of the vision with which Prime Minister is committed to serve this country, is actually serving the common people in letter and spirit. And that is recognized by the people themselves. It's not as if you're saying and you're showing target numbers, you're showing achievement numbers. No. The people in the ground are saying about it. I've got it. And so is my neighbor. So is the neighbor of that household and so on. So, and that is why I have used an expression, and I mean it when I've said it, that this is secularism in action. This is where we have not shown any difference between members belonging to this community or that community, this religion or that religion, or somebody's relative and not relative. No difference. The project reaches the ground for everybody who deserves to get it. And if they are eligible, they get it, irrespective of who they are. And therefore, in every way, the principle of empowerment, the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Vikas, has been executed in every way. And that is the sense of confidence that the blessings of the people are not just at the time when we gave promises, but the blessings are even now coming in abundantly to say, yes, you've kept up your word.
It is what the Prime Minister has also been talking about, the four castes, as he calls it.
That's right.
You know, the poor, women, farmers, youth. So I think that is the cornerstone of this part, of this speech. Nirmala ji, you've steered the economy in difficult times. You know, if I look at your last 5 years, there's been the pandemic. Right now, 2 wars are going on. Even then, we are projected to grow at 7.3%. Now, if I were to look at the nominal GDP, which has grown only 10.5%, consider an inflation of 4.5%, do you think that 7% itself would be challenging? I mean, do you think it is realistic for us to grow on those lines?
The Chief Economic Advisor has also commented in his preface. He's elaborated on how 7% is not difficult to achieve. Globally also, the various organizations which look at economies of all countries, like IMF for instance, has also enhanced their own assessment. So, upgrading our growth estimates is not just singularly our business. People are saying that fundamentally a lot of activities are happening. The robustness of the economy has not slackened anywhere. It has maintained its, the buoyancy with which things are happening, not just revenue collection when I'm talking of buoyancy. So there is reason to believe, yes, it is possible. And the deflator, not just the inflation, but the deflator itself is constantly, meaning we are looking at controlling inflation, the other factors fall in place, so the deflator itself then plays a role. And therefore, we are confident that on the one hand, we'll be able to manage inflation, and on the other, to keep the robustness in growth so that it is sustained growth. We have made every effort to look at both growth driving elements and inclusivity driving elements so that nobody is left out from this growth process, both to contribute and to gain from.
Indeed. Something that has been commented enough, and you've got a lot of accolades for it in this budget. If you look at the fiscal glide path, I think you've beaten estimates. This year you've projected 5.1 next year, so that also looks promising. What is your message to the sovereign rating agencies? You're expecting an upgrade?
Well, I would think that they do their job, but periodically it's our business also to bring it to their notice that economy, particularly emerging market economy like India, despite the odds, we are doing a lot of reforms, systemic reforms, which actually you're seeing is bearing the results now. If only Prime Minister Modi hadn't pressed the pedal, let's say the revving pedal, the accelerator during COVID, even as we are managing COVID, we will have to attend to reforms and continue doing the reforms. The Atmanirbhar Bharat announcements were all infused with so much of reform measures.
Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 5 right here on CNN News 18. Now, what we were bringing you before the break is an extended interview we have with the Finance Minister. This is Nirmala Sitharaman, a day after presenting the interim budget, just a few weeks away from general elections. Our editor-in-chief, Rahul Joshi, sat down with her, and in a wide-ranging interview that touched on feedback that the interim budget received yesterday and also politics that has played out over the last few days and the last few weeks, Nirmala Sitharaman referred, and this is what we're going to play out for you next in this next expert. This next expert is one in which Sitharaman talks about the North-South divide and how it continues to exist in some forms when it comes to languages. She's also referred to a continuing criticism that is made of the BJP party by the opposition today, that the party is a Brahmin party. She argues that no other party has helped so much with the upliftment of, according to her, the downtrodden. Take a look, and then we'll connect once again with our reporters to bring you more expertise.
Is there an attempt to paint the Bharatiya Janata Party as a North Indian party? And this North-South divide, encouraging that. Is that what you sense?
They've always called Bharatiya Janata Party two things. It is a Brahmin Baniya party.
Yes.
It's a Hindi party. Today, the kind of support BJP receives in South India disproves all this. And I don't want to name individuals and say, oh, he or she belongs to this caste, we promoted this caste, and therefore, more than BJP, I can challenge today, is there any one party in India which has worked for the betterment of tribals in India, which has worked for the betterment of the Dalit scheduled castes in India, which has recalled some of the best iconic leaders coming from those communities but attaining national stature, whether it is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, whether it is Guruji and considered like God himself, Birsa Munda, whether it is the sons of the Shabzade, Sikh gurus, who gave their lives in their teenage for the sake of our country. So in any one of these, I want to ask, is there any one party in this country which has as much served as the BJP? So what is Hindi party? When Prime Minister of India is talking about all languages, he quotes Thiruvalluvar.
Yes.
He quotes from Purananuru. Every given opportunity, he takes the languages even to the UN. So, Tamil Nadu's politics, speaking of these kind of things, has happily kept the Hindi speaking parts of the country, even if they are in alliance with them, away from the separatist rhetoric. So you think, oh, we are in alliance with that party, they cannot do any wrong.
Okay, let's go over to our colleague Aman Sharma to understand a lot more. Aman, I'm actually going to link what the Finance Minister has just said to something that's happening in the news right now. As we speak, over the last 2 days, now the former Chief Minister of Jharkhand, Hemant Soren, has been in the Enforcement Directorate's custody. Now, I bring it up because the JMM, we've had their supporters, their leaders come onto our channel multiple times. And one of the things the JMM is saying again and again is that tribals are being targeted. They're saying that this is something that happens all the time and the BJP is targeting tribals. At this moment, to see the Finance Minister making this point.
Well, Toya, I think that's a very superficial argument. Hemant Soren is not being targeted because he's a tribal. There's a corruption case, there's a land scam case, and that is what is going on there. I think what Nirmala Sitharaman is very clearly trying to say, no other government has worked so much for the tribals or the SCs than the Modi government. We had this whole Vijay Sankalp Yatra begin about 3 months back. Prime Minister went to the village of Birsa Munda in Jharkhand to launch that yatra, and the entire new mission was launched for development of the most backward tribal regions in the country. So I think this government has walked the talk when it comes to the issue of
even in the Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, the elections we just saw, you saw that these are tribal states and their performance, the BJP's performance in particular, you highlighted it.
Especially in Madhya Pradesh. Yeah, Madhya Pradesh is the state which has very strong tribal population. To win Madhya Pradesh as convincingly as the BJP did shows that the tribal support has been totally with the BJP, even in Chhattisgarh. These are the two states which have a lot of tribal population. I think the larger point that also she is making that about this BJP being painted as a North Indian party. As she said, the word she used, the Brahmin Baniya party. I think the BJP has also smashed those perceptions when it comes to how the schemes of the BJP have been really implemented. I think BJP will take pride in that when it comes to the elections. That even in South India, some South Indian states in fact perform the best when it comes to the implementation of central schemes. So it is not that BJP has discriminated between the North and the South. In fact, it is the comments that the BJP says come from the opposition parties that will actually bring out this North-South divide. If you see the statement of the brother of the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka just yesterday, or before that, the claims which came from the Congress after they lost the 3 states, those comments saying that Congress is strong in South India while BJP is a North Indian party. I think the elections will also show that, and when BJP speaks of this Ab ki baar 400 par kind of a comment, obviously they can't get 400 seats till they win a lot of seats in the South. So I think we will see BJP performing maybe better. BJP's calculation, they will perform better in Karnataka, in Telangana, maybe Tamil Nadu and Kerala. BJP will also make
less than 30 seats out of 130 last time though in 2019.
They won 29. They won 29 out of 129 last time, and this time the BJP's target is to touch 40 to 50 seats in these 5 southern India states. So if BJP is actually able to do that, this whole narrative that has been painted that BJP is only strong in the South and it can hence be stopped from coming to power because BJP is not strong in the South, only strong in the North, I think that the perception will get smashed if BJP actually gets more seats.
Okay, Aman, we're going to keep coming back to you to get more expertise here. Right now, we're going to head into a short break. This is The Nation at 5. We're going to continue to bring you excerpts from that interview and our panel of reporters and experts.
India's first breakfast show that wakes up to genuine questions that matter in our life. Like, which is the latest phishing scam you need to be aware about? What careers are in demand? How to have AI write an ace resume? Basically, everything you need to know right as you sip that morning coffee. So, set your alarms and get ready to start your day with a breakfast experience like never before. The Breakfast Club with me, Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor, only on CNN News 18.
Brought to you by.
Have eliminated more than 68,000 rules, which were just so archaic and were becoming instruments for rent-seeking people.
Yes.
So, systemic reforms have continued. Whether it was pre-COVID, GST and IBC, together with very many other reforms like professionalizing public sector banks and so on, The emphasis on reform has given us adequate rewards, and we'll continue doing that. That is why even in the budget, we have emphasized on transparency. We have emphasized on getting everything on board the budget process itself, rather than keeping it outside of the budget or underneath the carpet. These are not small steps, and that has been consistently done in the last 4-5 years. And before that, as I said, IBC or banking reforms, the 5 major recognition R's, as we say,
Absolutely.
of the problem. So to list it, there are so many, some small, some very big. The small ones having very big implication in making the economy much more cleaner and open and transparent. The bigger ones which are bearing results in terms of the money that you collect in GST.
Yes.
These are not small steps.
That's it.
So that is the one which I would play as important indicators which rating agencies should look at comprehensively, rather than look at just one detail here, one detail there. Macroeconomic stability is also very well kept up.
Yes. Nirmala ji, thank you very much once again for giving us this exclusive, very special interview, like every year after the budget. Through our News 18 network, through CNBC, CNBC Awaaz, CNN News 18, you will be able to reach every nook and corner of the country, and investors are glued into moneycontrol.com, tracking every twist and turn of the budget. Thank you so much. My first question, a somewhat obvious question, no Sops, no populist measures. Even in 2019 interim budget, the government had announced some Sops, like tax rebates. There were some announcements for the farmers, but none this time. Seems like a very confident Prime Minister going into 2024 elections. You've never looked more relaxed to me before. What was going on in your mind while drafting this?
Well, thank you for having me after the budget, like every year. It's a great opportunity to talk to your viewers, and also for others who are watching this program more with keenness to know about the Indian economy. Yes, the budget yesterday did not have any Sops announced. We treated it like a true vote on account, an interim budget before an election, and also an interim budget which is being presented with the clear understanding that the several programs which were launched with empowerment of citizens in mind over the last 10 years are reaching the ground, and the beneficiaries are already on their own speaking about it. The power of word of mouth is very strong. So when a beneficiary gets truly the benefit, and without any middlemen playing a role in it, they really understand that the intent of the government is what they've said is what is getting executed. So I place a lot of trust in the word of mouth, which has helped in schemes like Ujjwala, PM Awaaz Yojana, PM Mudra Yojana, Swanidhi Yojana, all of which have benefited the small households, small people who want to do their business and who don't have money to give for collateral, no properties to give. So this government has actually, because of the vision with which Prime Minister is committed to serve this country, is actually serving the common people in letter and spirit. And that is recognized by the people themselves. It's not as if you're saying and you're showing target numbers, you're showing achievement numbers. No. The people in the ground are saying about it. I've got it. And so is my neighbor. So is the neighbor of that household, and so on. So, and that is why I have used an expression, and I mean it when I've said it, that this is secularism in action. This is where we have not shown any difference between members belonging to this community or that community, this religion or that religion, or somebody's relative and not relative, no difference. The project reaches the ground for everybody who deserves to get it. And if they are eligible, they get it, irrespective of who they are. And therefore, in every way, the principle of empowerment, the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Vikas, has been executed in every way. And that is the sense of confidence that the blessings of the people are not just at the time when we gave promises, but the blessings are even now coming in abundantly to say, yes, you've kept up your word.
It is what the Prime Minister has also been talking about, the four castes, as he calls it.
That's right.
You know, the poor, women, farmers, youth. So I think that is the cornerstone of this part, of this speech. Nirmala ji, you've steered the economy in difficult times. You know, if I look at your last 5 years, there's been the pandemic. Right now, 2 wars are going on. Even then, we are projected to grow at 7.3%. Now, if I were to look at the nominal GDP, which has grown only 10.5%, consider an inflation of 4.5%, do you think that 7% itself would be challenging? I mean, do you think it is realistic for us to grow on those lines?
The Chief Economic Advisor has also commented in his preface. He's elaborated on how 7% is not difficult to achieve. Globally also, the various organizations which look at economies of all countries, like IMF for instance, has also enhanced their own assessment. So, upgrading our growth estimates is not just singularly our business. People are saying that fundamentally a lot of activities are happening. The robustness of the economy has not slackened anywhere. It has maintained its, the buoyancy with which things are happening, not just revenue collection when I'm talking of buoyancy. So there is reason to believe, yes, it is possible. And the deflator, not just the inflation, but the deflator itself is constantly, meaning we are looking at controlling inflation, the other factors fall in place, so the deflator itself then plays a role, and therefore we are confident that on the one hand we'll be able to manage inflation, and on the other to keep the robustness in growth so that it is sustained growth. We have made every effort to look at both growth driving elements and inclusivity driving elements so that nobody is left out from this growth process, both to contribute and to gain from.
Indeed. Something that has been commented enough, and you've got a lot of accolades for it in this budget. If you look at the fiscal glide path, I think you've beaten estimates. This year you've projected 5.1 next year, so that also looks promising. What is your message to the sovereign rating agencies? You're expecting an upgrade?
Well, I would think that they do their job, but periodically it's our business also to bring it to their notice that economy, particularly emerging market economy like India, despite the odds, we are doing a lot of reforms, systemic reforms, which actually you're seeing is bearing the results now. If only Prime Minister Modi hadn't pressed the...
1.5 लाख लोगों को हम सड़क दुर्घटनाओं में खो देते हैं क्योंकि कुछ लोगों ने अपने साथ साथ दूसरों का ख्याल नहीं रखा। सो आइए जुड़िए हमारे साथ सड़क सुरक्षा अभियान में संवेदना का सफर।
सड़क सुरक्षा अभियान संवेदना का सफर 3 फरवरी 2024 सुबह 11 बजे से न्यूज़ 18 नेटवर्क पर।
Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 5 right here on CNN News 18. Next, we have my colleague Pallavi Ghosh. She's going to be joining us to bring us her expertise on the interview that we've just brought to you, our audiences, over the last hour. Over the last hour, we've played out a few different excerpts from our editor-in-chief Rahul Joshi's sit-down interview with the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. They, of course, spoke about the interim budget that was presented yesterday, but they also touched on various other points, some of the criticism that has come in from the opposition, and also what the BJP's performance could look like in the upcoming elections, particularly in the South. Let's go over to my colleague Pallavi to understand more in terms of her takeaways. Pallavi, one of the particularly interesting points that Sitharaman makes is in regards to the criticism that the BJP government has faced when it comes to the question of price inflation. She does say it is something that we need to work on. Could you touch on that? Could you speak to that?
And that's certainly going to likely to become a poll issue, really, Toya, as far as the opposition parties go. And they have been relentlessly attacking the government on price rise. But if you listen to her interview, she also made it very clear that there are certain times national disasters, there's calamities, there are international factors which also explain why this kind of inflation takes place. And that's the reason that the government has stepped in, also periodically does step in to ensure that people are, kind of padded up and are protected from these kind of external factors which explain why there has often been this surge in inflation or rising prices. But it's a work in progress. I think that's something which she's been very, very free and frank about, not trying to cover up, saying, okay, yes, there are instances in some sectors where we are facing a price rise and the government tries to do as much as it can. But it's very clear that this is, of course, going to be priority or agenda number one of the government, which she has ensured that they will look at it in a few months, in the weeks that they have left to be in power. And of course, since they're certain to be back, if you look at its level of confidence within the government and the BJP, this is something which is going to be given a priority completely.
Interesting, Pallavi, in the same interview, when asked about the BJP's performance in the upcoming elections, you of course have Joshi who asks, how do you think they're going to perform? Do you think they'll get more seats in the upcoming elections? And she says, I can't say. She says obviously that she hopes they will, but she says, I can't say. Again, what should we make of that?
Well, I think her response was more to the exact number of seats, that questions that we were being asked of her. But I think the level of confidence was very much oozing earlier from the Prime Minister also, whenever he talks about, a third term, that the unfinished agenda is going to be fulfilled. But even if you listen to her vote and account speech inside Parliament yesterday, she said, I will be back. We are going to be back. And in fact, she talked about that this is not a full-fledged budget. There's much on the platter. In fact, if you remember that yesterday's voter account did not have any changes in the tax slab. And when she's been repeatedly asked about this question outside at her first press conference yesterday and also on the floor of the House, that we are going to address this factor when we are going to be back for the third time. She doesn't have to give the numbers, the government will not give the numbers, but the level of confidence amongst them is just cannot be doubted, because the performance, the white paper, the 10 years work done by them, Toya, is going to be used as a huge plank to explain why they are so confident that there is going to be a third time Modi Sarkar.
What did he say on the nominee?
All right, okay, Pallavi, thank you for bringing us that context. I'm just going to go over to our colleague Aman Sharma to get more context on this. Aman, first, after the interim budget was presented yesterday, tell us, what were the key arguments that came in from the opposition? We've heard the usual arguments. Price rise, for example, is something they've continued to focus on. But looking at the interim budget yesterday, what were the key voices? Tell us that, and then tell us how Sitharaman attacked some of those points in the interview. Right?
Well, I think the key voices from the opposition were, it's a Thanda budget. There is nothing to take home from this. First of all, it's a voter account, it's not a full budget. So, government can't come out fully with everything in a voter account. It's only a voter account for the next 3 months, and for a full budget will come in July. But the opposition mainly saying that unemployment is a big issue. Unemployment, nothing has been done for jobs. That is what I saw Priyanka Chaturvedi and some other opposition leaders from the Congress say yesterday, that nothing is being done on jobs, nothing has been done. People even raising the Manipur issue, that nothing, peace has not returned there, and basically saying that there is not much. The government is saying a lot is good, but actually on the ground things are not as good. That is what the opposition is saying. But I think Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget has made it very clear that, okay, we are not going for these big bang populist measures. We are not coming in for a fuel price cut. We are not going in for more money like in the PM Kisan scheme, which has been a demand by many. But we are going in for a development-oriented budget. We are going into more investment into capex. We'll spend more on capex. Last year it was 9.5 lakh crore, I believe. This time it's over 11 lakh crore. The capex budget is a record, up 12% almost from last year. So I think the government path is very clear to it. They want to go on this growth infrastructure spending path, which also propels the economy and takes the growth chart above the 7% mark which they have. They don't want to fall for these populist measures, because they feel that the larger fruits of development to people will come through larger spending, I think that is the path the government even took last year. Yes, there has been an LPG price cut, when the government thought that price is too high at 1100 rupees, that cut had come, but nothing much else. So I think this also shows the confidence of the government going into the election.
So I just want to ask you, Aman, one of the arguments that Shashi Tharoor, the Congress MP, made, in fact, on our channel last night at 9 p.m, one of the arguments he made was that, look, yes, all numbers look great on a large scale. The economy is doing better. The third largest economy is a number you hear again and again. But that question of the common man, retail inflation, obviously, he also touched on rural unemployment, having increased in a particular age demographic. And he said this is a key problem that we're not seeing them address. Now, Sitharaman also yesterday phrased the budget as a budget that was, among other groups, for farmers too. How did you see this point addressed in the interview today?
Well, I think what she's trying to say here is that, look, we of course, unemployment is an issue in a country as big as ours. Unemployment will be an issue. Inflation, but the inflation numbers are under control. Whenever I think the pulses, as she mentioned, that pulses inflation is an issue, but government has urgently taken steps to ensure that the price comes down. So we have seen multiple such interventions on the issue of inflation, be it in food grains, foodstuffs, pulses, other issues in the last 3 to 4 months. The government has been pretty quick on that. But I think the larger issue, of course, the opposition will take it to the elections, saying that the inflation is an issue, unemployment issue. The government is very clear that the government schemes which are being spread out to the poor, for example, the housing scheme rising from 3 crore houses to now 5 crore houses will be built. So I think that all the government says we are working for the poor are getting the actual benefits on the ground, and they are the ones who will vote us back into the next elections.
Okay, Aman, thank you for bringing us that context. With that, we are drawing our show to a close. This was The Nation at 5. Thank you for staying with us.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The Modi government has made a big statement by not making any big announcements in the interim budget announced yesterday. Against expectations, the government, which played it poised and confident, did not use this opportunity for any populist measures, focused on fiscal restraint, and even promised a white paper on its economic policies that it says have had a transformational impact on India over the last 10 years. Now, speaking exclusively to Network 18 a short while ago, Finance Minister reiterated her government's commitment to the saturation model, which in her speech yesterday too she called secularism in action, because there is no discrimination in beneficiaries and deliveries actually happening to the last person in the queue. She responded to the jobs challenge by pointing to the changing patterns in employment, especially since COVID. And on the all-important announcement of the white paper on economy, she mentioned how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been thinking about this for a while, particularly to showcase the reasons why we were languishing as the fragile 5 10 years ago and what it took to bring India to the top 5 economies of the world. But he did not do it because the faith in India's systems would have been shaken had they revealed the situation before restoring it to health. Remember, the opposition, while in parts welcoming capex increase to 11.11 lakh crores, has turned